Hey there, class. Dr. Steve here, and welcome to Trait Theory Week. Question for you. Have you ever taken a personality test, Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, the DISC, the Big Five, and you probably had one or two reactions to this? You either thought, oh my gosh, this personality test, it is in my mind, it understands exactly who I am, or you're like, this thing's terrible, it doesn't capture me at all. And I think it's that tension that is actually a very perfect entry point into trait theory. Because you see, trait theories focus on identifying stable patterns of behavior, thinking, and emotion. Let me repeat that. Trait theories focus on identifying stable patterns of behavior, thinking, and emotion. So instead of asking why we are this way, trait theories and trait theorists instead ask, what are the consistent traits that define you or that define a person? And so some of these well-known frameworks that we're discussing throughout the class are the following. We have the Big Five, which is a classic personality theory. Big Five. OCEAN is an acronym for openness, conscientiousness, agreeableness, extroversion, and neuroticism. Then kind of a more spliced out version of that was the 16 personality factors developed by Raymond Cattell. Then you have Hogan assessments, which is like a modern personality theory. And there's many, many more. You know, the DISC, MBTI, the Myers-Briggs. There's many different personality theory tests, all of which are aimed, again, at extracting the consistent traits. Regardless of which test you're taking, the goal really is the same, and that is to organize personality into measurable traits. Again, they're not explaining why you are this way. They're not looking at your history. These tests are just taking a snapshot of these are the things that you tend to like. These are the things that you tend to do. These are the things that you tend to believe. So based on this, we give these tests to a lot of different people. So based on this is probably how you are. These are the types of personality traits that you embody. So trait theory, if you really think about it, tries to bring clarity and structure to what you are finding to be quite complicated. And it is, because human personality is complex. We are discovering that in this class. There are so many different variables and influences that make up this thing that we call a human being. But trait theories do try, and I think they do a decent job of helping us to try to predict behavior, understand our tendencies. They help us to communicate and understand differences more clearly. So you see a lot of personality tests being used in team types of situations, corporate America, so that individuals can understand who they are as an employee or as a leader and how you interact with other people in your team. So for instance, if we look at the Big Five, conscientiousness, if you're high on conscientiousness, you tend to be reliable and structured. If you're high on openness, you tend to be creative and exploratory. High on extroversion, you're energized by interaction. And so with these traits, it actually gives us a shared language to describe and understand people. So where this actually becomes quite useful, as I mentioned earlier, is application, right? Work settings, leadership style, communication style, decision-making style. Understanding those things about yourself and about other people helps to be able to organize work, direct work, identify what individuals' work preferences might be. So in the work setting, these types of personality tests are incredibly useful. How about in relationships? If you're in a relationship with a significant other, or even a friendship, or with family members, you're better able to understand the differences between one another, differences in one's needs, differences in one's desire and how one reacts. And by understanding that, again, you can start to communicate a little bit better, or even just that awareness, some of the things that really used to annoy the heck out of you might be able to be navigated and managed a little bit more effectively because you now understand this person better. And even just your own self-awareness. I think it was Nietzsche, I don't know, that said the unexamined life is not worth living. That sounds incredibly dramatic. I don't know if I fully believe that, but there is value in self-awareness. And by understanding these personality traits and by taking some of these personality assessments, even if they can be a bit fluid at times, it still brings us some awareness that we can at least react to. And that's the important thing. It gives us something to react to. We can either say, yeah, I think that's right. No, that's not about me. Or, you know what? Let me look into this a little bit more. And that's incredibly valuable as we think about our own growth, our own development, that we have the opportunity to look at ourselves in the mirror and determine, is this who I am? And if it is this who I want to be? Keeping in mind that we never want to put ourselves into a box. Listen, I am a psychologist and I believe that humans can change, that maybe zebras can change their stripes. And so if extroversion is extroversion, and we put ourselves into a box and I'm an extroverted person, what does that mean if I just want to go home sometimes and just put on Netflix and not talk to anybody? Does that mean I'm not extroverted? Just because I'm low on conscientiousness in general doesn't mean that I can't get stuff done. So we want to be very careful about allowing these personality tests to fully dictate, this is who you are, this is who you were, and this is who you're going to be forever. Instead, these tools are maps. They're not definitions. They're not boxes. They help us guide understanding, but they don't fully capture the complexity of a person. So if you're somebody who completely leans on a personality result, oh, I'm an Enneagram 7 or whatever it is, you could be missing the mark about how beautifully complex we as human beings actually are. So, how much of who we are is stable? How much of who we are can actually change? Who are we at all? You know, that's where these types of questions and these types of perspectives can really start to come together to paint a larger picture of how we view ourselves, and even more importantly, who do we want to become? So with that, folks, chew on the trait theory a little bit. I'm curious to hear your thoughts about it, and we'll see you in the next one. Talk to you later.